We're actually being occupied by pushers and users. And
we don't have enough resources. It's somebody else's problem.
We darn sure are losing the battle.
You can buy cocaine on the streets right in front of school.
I'm scared of getting hooked.
Police officer, search for me! You didn't have to yell like
that. They're dealing dope out there. We're going to catch them.
We're not going to tolerate it.
My hands would start to shake, and I couldn't.
Under arrest, Willie.
I ain't do nothing, man.
No child is immune.
It's genuine rock cocaine, my man.
Got a dime bag, I got a nickel bag.
Drugs, that's all that everybody cares about.
It's pretty easy to get drugs anywhere in the United States.
I've seen somebody die, yeah.
Cocaine, marijuana, quaaludes, you name it, I had.
Any fool can sell drugs.
It's getting worse. It's not getting better.
None of us is safe, and I don't care where you live.
I'm truly scared for my children.
Good evening, I'm Peter Jennings, and for the next hour, we are going to examine in detail why it is that so many Americans are having an affair with illegal drugs. Before we're finished tonight, we hope you'll understand why one mother merely said thank you when her young son gave her the money she knew he had made by pushing drugs. How would you like to live somewhere where they can't get enough kids for a Little League game because the kids are either high on crack or somewhere else selling it? We're going to hear some kids tell us tonight that they first got the idea of using drugs from watching their parents. And we wonder if you'll find that as shocking as we do. We think you'll be very surprised when you realize just how permissive our whole society is towards drugs. This is not the first broadcast we've done on the subject. We've already established that it's a plague on the whole land. We said in the first broadcast that if politicians are going to call this a war against drugs, then it should be fought like a war. In preparing this broadcast, we come to the conclusion that if it is a war, then it has many fronts. The essential understanding that we want to reach by the end of this hour is why. Why do we rank higher than any other industrial country in the use and abuse of drugs? Why does this demon loom so large on our shores, in our neighborhoods? Once again, we've enlisted the help of our ABC News affiliates across the country who are very much in touch with their own neighborhoods.
Here in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, recovering addicts tell me it was the pressure to fit in that made them turn to drugs.
Everybody would think that I was, you know, the big man on campus.
It's a wonderful drug. I just fell in love with it.
A high school student in Manchester, New Hampshire told me he deals in cocaine because it puts $400 in his pocket each day and it makes him feel proud.
Clean, it's neat, it's quick. It's easy to move.
Got kids 17 and 18 driving Mercedes.
Flint, Michigan officials say a lot of people use drugs to escape the boredom of unemployment.
Makes me feel more confident in myself.
It's a happiness drug.
Northern Indiana, an 18-year-old recovering addict told us he began abusing drugs when he was 12 as a form of rebellion.
It gave me a buzz like no other drug gave me a buzz.
Felt like I was taking off like a kid, like nothing mattered.
This area in Palm Beach County, Florida is a haven for crack sales. The addicts not only buy it for themselves, they purchase it to get prostitutes.
I got into drugs through my mother. She always had drugs and was always doing them in front of me.
In Tampa, crack users say they like the drug because of its short but powerful high.
It was the best toy I ever had in my life.
The best toy I ever had in my life. Why is it that millions of Americans have that irresistible urge to use illegal drugs? Why do these drugs make so many people turn on to them? To understand that, we must first understand what drugs do physically, to our minds and our bodies.
We know why feelings of pain are important. They warn you something is being damaged. A hand burned, a muscle torn, a relationship broken. Good feelings tell you something is being created and reward you for physical accomplishment, making love, or meeting some great challenge. Your brain creates these good feelings for you, especially in the primitive midbrain. The midbrain has many reward centers, where rewarding feelings like pleasure, power, contentment, or excitement are created for you by natural brain chemicals bridging the gaps where brain cells meet. Chemicals like dopamine and endorphins. These natural chemical contacts between brain cells give you your normal good feelings. Drugs trick the brain into producing these good feelings. Cocaine, for example, stops dopamine from being reabsorbed, so the reward signal stays and intensifies, producing an intense high. Heroin fakes the endorphin reward signal by imitating the endorphin molecule. All these drugs create false sensations of reward. They can feel something like the exhilaration of winning a race, only you haven't done any running. And scientists have just discovered these drugs also shut off parts of your advanced outer brain, with which you reason and worry, make judgments about your feelings and actions. At this lab in Baltimore, the brain scanner shows red for thinking activity in the outer brain. But when the person is then given cocaine, lots of that red disappears. Lots of thinking, in fact, shuts off, even though the cocaine user may feel his thinking is enhanced. And cocaine makes you feel paranoid. When it's injected instead of snorted or in the form of crack, which is smoked, there's an instant powerful rush, but it's all over in 10 minutes, calling for more and more. Mice will keep pushing the lever that gives them more cocaine until they die from it. Humans have found each drug has heavy prices for its chemical trickery. Marijuana damages memory power. It shortens your attention span. Heroin, which at first kills anxiety, then leaves you with a rebound of massive anxiety and pain. And cocaine can damage the heart's rhythm and muscle, sometimes making it suddenly stop for good. But none of these dangers stop the person who's addicted to one or more of these drugs. Your brain's natural appetites for food, sex, approval, success are all changed by the drug's chemical into one big appetite for the drug itself.
It will come as a shock to many Americans, but as a nation we are susceptible to drugs. That is to say, drugs have flourished in the American culture. And in a moment, we'll see why.
Drugs, Why This Plague? A Peter Jennings special, brought to you by AT&T. In long-distance services, information and network systems, telephones and computers. AT&T, the right choice.
Somewhere over the rainbow, where
sound, but not words.
When you look back through the country's history, using drugs, including alcohol and tobacco, is there in every chapter. We have always been a nation of users. Just think of this one example. As the early Americans pushed west, one of the first buildings in every new community was the saloon. Cocaine was in common use in this country by the 1880s.
This was one of the first motion pictures ever made. The year was 1905. The subject, opium dens. Not surprising considering the United States was in the midst of a major drug epidemic. Opium, morphine, cocaine, marijuana, it was all readily available and generally legal. It was cocaine, however, that emerged as the real drug of choice at the turn of the century. It was even a source of humor. Cocaine was said to cure everything from indigestion to hemorrhoids and toothaches. It was added to soft drinks like Coca-Cola and to wine. Mary Annie wine, a potent mix of cocaine and alcohol, was taken by prominent Americans like Ulysses S. Grant, inventor Thomas Edison, author Mark Twain, composer John Philip Sousa.
It was touted as being the all-American tonic, the all-American drug. And then, as time went on, the casualties started to mount up.
Tens of thousands of Americans found themselves addicted to cocaine. In 1909, a presidential commission reported to Teddy Roosevelt that cocaine had led to loss of lives and livelihoods, that it was responsible for an increase in violent crime. The public was now turning against drugs, and the federal government in 1914 started banning them. By the 1920s, students in every state were required to learn about the effects of narcotics, about the evils of addiction.
I gotta have dope. I'm a hophead. I'd sell my soul for just one shot.
In 1937, under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, marijuana became the last of the drugs to be banned. Distinctions were no longer drawn. Every drug was dangerous. Every drug destructive.
For decades, drugs remained out of sight and out of mind for most Americans. But then came the 1960s, a time of youthful rebellion. In places like San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, the message was tune in, turn on, drop out. The means was often marijuana and LSD.
It was the counterculture. It was personal freedom, mind expansion.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small.
The
fact that the straight people wouldn't like it, the fact that the parents didn't like it, the fact that they didn't know anything about it because they'd never had it. They've never been there. We've done something you haven't done. Just that silly part was fun.
Coming into Los Angeles, bringing in a couple of keys.
By 1971, a national survey found that marijuana had been tried by 40% of 18 to 21-year-olds.
And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for?
Marijuana was the preferred drug of those protesting the Vietnam War. But many of those actually fighting the war were using heroin.
Stone junkie, stone junkie.
Some estimates suggest as many as 25% of the U.S. servicemen there. Long considered a ghetto drug, it was cheap and easy to conceal. 2 reasons why, by 1970, nearly 500,000 Americans were using heroin back home. The very peak of the drug culture came in the mid-70s, and with it came cocaine, again. But this generation of Americans had never known the dangers of drugs firsthand, had never learned those lessons of the past.
I think partly because the government had been far less than honest about the potential dangers of marijuana. They had exaggerated it since the 1930s. Most people were not believing them when they told them cocaine was a problem.
As in the past, cocaine at first was considered just one more recreational drug. Only now, in the 80s, have its addictive effects been rediscovered.
Cocaine's for horses, not for men. They tell me it'll kill me, but they won't say when.
And that's the way it's been for all this length of time. They tell me it'll kill me, but they won't say when. Did you know that 40% of all Americans have tried some illegal drug? Not to mention how many of us have had a drink or smoked a cigarette. And we're forever reinforcing this image of ourselves. If you think back to all those movies and all the television you've seen, you know how many messages there are that drugs in general are a normal part of the American way of life.
This is grass. You mean marijuana? Yeah. Well, let me see that.
A lot of people were bothered by some of the media images of the late 60s and early 70s. Images that treated drugs as a hip rite of passage.
You won't get hooked.
Or as a source of humor.
That's about $2,000 an ounce.
Really?
And what is the kick of it? I never...
They worried that our children were getting the wrong message from such images.
Is that a joint, man?
That drugs were okay, no big deal. But these messages about drugs did not exist in a vacuum. They were part of a much broader mix of popular attitudes, some very old, some still with us today, of commercials designed to sell us products by appealing to our desires and our fears. And it's in this broader culture, not just in the permissive messages of a few movies or records, that some of the appetite for the kind of gratification drugs offer may well be found.
Drugs aren't cool. Walk away. Say no to drugs.
For instance, this celebrity urges us to shun drugs, but tells us that this is where the fun starts. And in this beer commercial, the link between alcohol and erotic excitement is unmistakable. And it's not just Madison Avenue. Our movie-born images fusing alcohol and glamour are more than half a century old. Here are Nick and Nora Charles of Thin Man fame.
Say, how many drinks have you had?
This will make 6 martinis.
All right. Will you bring me 5 more martinis? Leo, line them right up here.
The cigarette, as a similar symbol of chic, is only now beginning to fade, some 60 years after a brilliant public relations campaign sold the image of the cigarette.
Pop, 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 and if you smoke yourself to death.
And it goes well beyond alcohol or tobacco.
I had a headache this big, but I took Excedrin and it's gone.
Sometimes it seems you can't turn on a TV without hearing how one little pill will cure whatever ails you. Do you weigh too much? Take a pill.
I wasn't hungry, I lost weight, and I feel great.
Can't sleep at night? Take a pill.
Are on their way.
Today, the message of the medium about drugs is very different. Now we're trying to teach ourselves, and especially our children, that drugs can kill.
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
But it took nearly 25 years after a Surgeon General's report indicted cigarettes as a health hazard for attitudes and public policy to really change. And with the legacy of instant gratification so prevalent in our medium, how long might it take for even the best intentioned messages to start convincing us about the real dangers of drugs?
Only I never figured that I ought to be telling that to a 13-year-old.
If you don't teach your kids to say no to drugs, it's as good as saying yes.
And what about a 10-year-old? That is a picture of Andrew Baker. He lived in Joliet, Illinois. He was in the 4th grade. He went swimming one day and he drowned. And the police had to tell his grandmother, she was the one who raised him, that the reason he drowned was because he had used too much cocaine. And he lost consciousness when he was in the water. Why on earth, you ask, was a 10-year-old boy using cocaine? For any parent, it has got to be a constant nightmare. Will my kids get involved? At the beginning tonight, we mentioned a place where the baseball coaches in Little League couldn't get a full team together because the kids were either selling or using crack. We were talking about the far southeast side of Detroit. And we bet there are other places, too. We're going to take you on a revealing journey through the ages now. At the 3 most important stages of a person's development, there is a primary reason why they are, at the very least, vulnerable to drugs and often on them. And if we can identify the reason they use drugs, we've taken a big step towards getting a handle on possible solutions.
Why would children 12 and under do drugs? Experts say their behavior is invariably learned from older brothers, sisters, or parents. It can begin astoundingly early.
Sometimes even as young as 3 years old, that kids will have their first drink with their parents or smoke their first joint with their parents or older siblings.
Laura's older brother turned her on to marijuana. Her parents are heavy drinkers. She started drinking beer and smoking marijuana at age 10.
I think it's because of my parents and my older brother, who I looked up to. When you see your parents doing it, you want to grow up just like them.
Okay, I think we can get started now.
My name is John, and my mother and my father are recovering from drugs. Hi, John.
These children, aged 4 to 12, are the most vulnerable. They are the sons and daughters of drug addicts and alcoholics, enrolled in a Chicago prevention program called Kids Like Us.
And my dad drinks.
Researchers have found that children of alcoholics are 70% more likely than other young kids to eventually abuse drugs and alcohol.
What about vodka?
Is vodka?
They are at high risk because they learn to cope with everyday life the way their parents do, with drugs, any drugs.
When I have a headache, I'll take an aspirin and I'll keep taking it all day long.
You do?
Yeah, I take at least 5.
Okay. They learned that to feel better, to use a pill or something magic, alcohol, drugs, cocaine.
We're finding out that the majority of these kids have been abuse victims, that they have learning disabilities, that they are depressed, that almost 40% of them have tried to commit suicide at least once before going into treatment.
And even in elementary school, researchers have identified early warning signs that drug trouble is down the road.
The most common repeatedly found predictor is early aggressive behavior, breaking rules, fighting truancy.
But the family fabric is what's most important when you ask why preteen kids do drugs. Looking up to older brothers and sisters and coping like mom and dad.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
By the time they reach the teen years, fitting in with their peers becomes the most important thing in a young person's life.
Me being accepted, was more important to me than, what can happen to me.
Researchers say that if a teenager's friends turn on, that's a strong sign that he or she will too. And there's often a stepping stone pattern. The user may move gradually from alcohol to marijuana to a variety of harder drugs, from experimentation to regular use to abuse. What can lead a teenager to drug abuse? Broken families, parental use of drugs, excessive discipline, permissiveness,
school troubles, psychological disorders. But at the top of many teenagers' list of reasons, peer pressure, the need to fit in.
Here in America, we start to back away from our family in the preteen and early teen years, and we are looking for ways to be different than our parents.
Dr. Miller Newton runs a treatment program called Kids Centers of America.
And since we don't have anything to be independent with, we use the peer group and youth culture as a tool for saying no to our parents' yeses. So it becomes really important for kids to be accepted by peers. And if you think of the age of the kid, they're growing fast. They have a terminal case of the awkwards. They're all feet, elbows, and knees, terribly self-conscious, hormones squirting. And here's this magic way to feel wonderful on demand.
As one young person put it, when you're facing the pressures of growing up and figuring out who you are, it can be fun to be out of control.
Especially at first, it was really fun for me. You know, I was using, I wasn't getting in any trouble. You know, my life wasn't really unmanageable yet. And I was just hanging out, getting high with the guys.
Cocaine gives the user false feelings of invulnerability. It numbs teen anxieties. Its dangers don't matter to someone hooked on it. For young people, anxious and awkward, trying to find a place in the world or trying to escape from it, an illegal drug can seem a very easy answer.
As each new day dawns in the troubled life of the adult drug user, there are no easy answers.
Life in the fast lane, slowly make you lose your mind. Life in the fast lane.
Kind of heavy and slow around Union to Washington Street.
Drugs often provide the quickest route to escape.
While I was doing it, I didn't have a care in the world.
It allowed me to forget the fact that I had 3 children so early in life.
The pressures of high-stress jobs, the challenges of adult relationships, are just two of the many factors that make adults, men and women over the age of 18, the largest group of drug abusers in this country. Listen to this judge, a former addict.
I got into it as an experiment with a friend.
This nurse is a recovering drug abuser.
What happened in my case is that they ended up being an end in themselves.
An end in themselves and a risk. The drug user could lose his job or destroy his family. But he continues because he often knows no other way to cope. Illicit drugs serve as self-medication.
The drugs put them where they want to be. Makes them feel good, makes them feel masterful, makes them feel relaxed, makes them feel less anxious.
And for those engaged in the all-consuming search for the good life, cocaine, more than any other drug, offers the illusion of membership. It did for this plastic surgeon.
I thought this was what you did in that kind of lifestyle, and I wanted that lifestyle.
What do they need? Energy, cocaine gives it to them. Confidence, cocaine gives it to them.
By the time we got to Woodstock.
And having grown up in the 1960s and early 70s at the height of the drug culture, today's generation of adults, more than any before it, seems more willing to take from drugs what drugs will offer.
If my so-called formative years were not in the 60s, then what happened to me in the 70s and 80s probably never would have happened.
But here you have a whole generation of people who've almost been taught the chemical solution to their life's problems. They've grown up thinking that illicit drugs, illegal drugs, are really not that bad.
And it is an illusion that doctors fear will follow this generation of baby boomers into old age, eventually transforming the adult drug plague of today into a geriatric drug epidemic of a not-too-distant tomorrow.
And there can be no thinking person in this nation who wants that to happen. Just look at how much has been lost in this generation.
We're talking about money, money. We're talking about money, money.
cars and home improvements with drug money.
A Mercedes-Benz owned by a 19-year-old who is unemployed.
They're $100, $200 rock seats.
They paycheck at McDonald's. You can make that on the streets within 15, 20 minutes.
Agents are calling this a $9.5 million bust.
Street value is $27 million.
Value nearly $500 million.
Tons of cash that must be laundered.
Authorities have also seized a yacht in the Virgin Islands.
We're talking about money, money, money. We're talking about money, money, money. We're talking about money, money.
Let's talk about money. In a country where the biggest is always a big deal, we have the biggest cocaine and marijuana markets in the world. You think the drug dealer knows he has a perfect product? What's the last product you would have risked your health, your home, and your career to buy? And they don't even advertise on television. Listen to an ad man. We asked Fred Posner at the advertising agency of NW Air to compare the marketing technique that he would use to sell a legitimate product with the selling job done for drugs.
Most consumer demand is generated by the company. This is an industry where the demand is generated by the consumer.
Consumer demand. In the illegal drug world, it is so intense that American users are paying traffickers an estimated $140 billion a year. In just one San Diego drug bust, for example, customs agents seized $2 million in cash.
What you want in a marketing sense is for people to reflexively use a product without even thinking.
In New York City alone, authorities say there are 400,000 drug addicts requiring an endless supply. Nationally, there are about 2 million addicts out of 40 million drug users.
Where in life have you ever seen a situation that's more perfect than when the consumer, the market target that you're dealing with, is going out of his way to find the salesperson to sell him the product?
This is how it worked in tiny Kermit, West Virginia. Each weekend, an illegal drug house right next to City Hall would attract hundreds of buyers from miles away. Drug dealers don't have to advertise. Instead, they rely on more effective techniques.
Both sampling and word of mouth are marketing men's dreams in order to be successful.
Sampling. Some dealers hand out free drug samples in order to hook new buyers.
In order to segment the market on price, you have the high-priced products and you have the low-priced.
In Houston, crack sells for as low as $5 per dosage. For those too poor to afford regular cocaine, the development of relatively cheap crack cocaine has dragged millions more, including children, into the illicit market.
What you've done is maximally penetrated the marketplace.
With illegal drugs ranging from marijuana to cocaine to heroin readily available now, each buyer can find satisfaction for his own emotional and physical needs. In other words, there is something for everyone.
In business, you have certain legalities that you have to abide by. They have no legalities.
During an undercover drug deal this year in Pasadena, California, traffickers killed 2 federal agents and wounded another. If competitors in the drug world, be they other dealers or the law, become threatening, the traffickers will either try to bribe them away or simply kill them off.
Some portrait, some business. The core of the American drug business, and thus the drug problem, is very much in our inner cities. Dealing drugs is a way to make a living, and in America's inner cities, drugs are the most profitable business for everyone to see.
I saw her take off the top of the bottle and smell it. There's a crack bottle, and the man, he's doing it just right in front of the store. Crack vials. That's what I see every day, is crack vials. Day and night.
Behind the decaying walls of the inner city, powder cocaine is processed into rock cocaine or crack, and pure heroin and cocaine are diluted with baking soda or sugar, stepped on it is called, to increase the product, turning a $1,000 ounce of cocaine, for example, into 2 ounces worth $2,000. Street drug rings can be sophisticated. The prototype looks like this. The kingpin runs an operation purchasing narcotics from foreign smugglers. Under the kingpin are leaders who oversee the packaging and distribution. Runners then take the drugs and bring them to street sellers, sometimes called postmen. Lookouts steer customers to the postman and watch for the police. gunmen called executioners provide protection for the operation. Everybody makes money, including the adolescent lookouts who can earn $200 a week. Teenage runners, $200 a day. Profits for the dealers themselves are staggering.
A good week, we'll make about 30 G's.
You yourself?
Yeah.
$30,000 a week?
A week.
The drugs are often sold openly. According to a Ford Foundation study, there is little fear of angering inner-city residents, some of whom are resigned to the fact that drugs are a way of life.
Is anybody in this crowd angry about people selling drugs?
No. Nah.
Of course, many inner-city residents deplore drugs, but their voices must compete with $100 bills. In some cases, these bills support families.
I'm the only child, so therefore I was the man of the house.
So when you gave your mother the dope money, what would she say?
Thank you.
In Los Angeles, pushers have even bought the cooperation of blocks of homeowners.
The drug dealer comes in, he offers them money. He says, here's a nice car for you to drive. I'm going to fix up your house. Whenever I want to use your house for drug dealing, you'll let me in, I deal my drugs, I leave.
Without a guilty conscience, because morals are not a concern for most dope dealers.
If I didn't sell it, somebody else would.
But kids, they don't know what they're getting into sometimes.
I can't take care of everybody else's kids. I got to take care of myself.
These dealers are not even afraid of prison. It's just a part of doing business. Crack dealer Clifford Townsend was arrested in Las Vegas.
You know, people say crime doesn't pay, but it's worth it in a sense if you can make, say, $15,000, $16,000 in one day.
So, why is the inner city drug traffic thriving? Because it is capitalism for people without much capital. Because it is no longer considered a risky business. It's simply business. And business is good.
Yes, that's the way it is in the ghetto, and business is good. But the drug business is flourishing in affluent America as well, and the dealers are there to service the rich as well as the poor. They just aren't so visible.
I didn't get my drugs from poor people and in ghettos. I didn't get my drugs in bad neighborhoods. I got them in the same areas that I lived in.
The white-collar clientele obtains its drugs in a variety of ways. Example, in New Haven, Connecticut, suburbanites drive into the inner city to buy their cocaine. In Little Rock, Arkansas, millionaire bond traders obtained their cocaine in Miami, then gave it away to their friends. In affluent Marin County, California, police say cocaine was sold out of this $500,000 house.
What we're coming across is a very small percentage, and the amount that's out there is just astronomical.
Children of the affluent say buying drugs is simply a matter of knowing the right people. In Boca Raton, Florida, Chrissy used drugs for 6 years.
Everyone would at least have like $40 or $50. We put it all together and we'd give it to the guy, and he would go into the house, he would get drugs, and he would come back out, and then we'd leave.
For Chrissy and her friends, getting drugs was never a problem because law enforcement rarely targets affluent users.
But here in Seattle, the white-collar cloak of anonymity was shredded in the celebrated case of Michael Sophie.
Sophie sold cocaine exclusively to white-collar professionals, imported the drug from California, and sold it out of his furniture store. Surveillance cameras recorded dozens of lawyers, stockbrokers, real estate agents buying drugs from Sophie. Bugs in his condominium recorded conversations between Sophie and his upscale clients who thought they were immune from prosecution.
It's a low-income problem, you know, now, and they're letting everybody else out. They don't kick the doors into $200,000 condominiums.
Sophie also had a delivery service, a courier making drug runs to high-rise office buildings and to suburban homes.
They don't have to go out to the street corner to buy their drugs. They can get it delivered to their door.
So behind the closed doors of America's comfortable communities, the drug beat goes on. The nationwide drug distribution network is as successful here as it is in the inner cities. Dealers are getting rich, and the rich are getting hooked.
Have we made the point? We spent 3 times as much on illegal drugs last year as we did on imported oil. All because America won't kick the habit.
You've just been caught knocking off the Cal.
Why This Plague? A Peter Jennings special will continue in a moment.
The right to vote keeps America free. Everyone has a responsibility to make democracy work. Do us all a favor. Follow the conventions, register, and vote.
Jennings and Brinkley, the Democratic National Convention, next Monday.
To do business in California, you've got to move fast. The last thing you need is a phone system that slows you down.
I just get back yesterday. I find out Brennan calls 5 times in one day. Can't get through.
Our phone system went down again?
You got it. I said, that's it. We're changing to Pacific Bell.
Do you think that'll help?
They've got the Centrex system. It's all in their offices. They monitor the whole thing 24 hours a day. It's not going to go down.
Drugs are still pouring through New Mexico in record amounts.
1,000 pounds of cocaine and sesame seeds.
Brooks County Sheriff's deputies knew the cocaine would be coming through California.
Sir, you're under arrest for the importation of cocaine in the United States.
The largest cocaine seizure in U.S. history.
Investigation at this time with the United States Customs.
The cocaine was submerged in frozen fruit pulp.
Rat trap.
Yes, that is the kind of ingenuity we're up against. At the Customs Department, they tell us that if you can think of a way to smuggle something, the dope dealer has already thought of it. A can of WD-40? What do you think they ship in that? And does it work when it's tested? Of course it does. So how do we fight back against this? As we've discovered, this war has many fronts, and success may only come through a series of small skirmishes. Let's take the whole question of supply. The government has already spent a lot of money trying to prevent drugs from getting into the country, without much success. For 15 months off the southern coast, the Air Force has run a high-tech surveillance operation, early warning aircraft included, and they have apprehended drug smugglers on only 8 occasions. The military does not want to be involved any more than it already is. And would it be constitutional anyway? And there are always politicians who are prepared to pander to the most basic instincts of all.
Shoot these drug-bearing aircraft down and machine gun the survivors.
Radical and irresponsible. But there are realistic ways of hassling the drug dealers as well as their customers. It may be a community angry enough to wipe out the crack houses. It may be businessmen getting together and hiring what are essentially vigilantes to keep their neighborhood dealer-free. They're small steps, they're tiny victories, but they do have a measurable impact. It's the hassle effect. And with the help of our affiliates in Miami, Dallas, and New York, we'll show you how the government, the police, and ordinary citizens are at least hassling the enemy.
That order to stop has become all too familiar to boaters from California to here in South Florida. At our borders, customs agents are stopping and checking cars and trucks, all part of the federal anti-drug crackdown called Zero Tolerance.
Zero Tolerance is a demand reduction program to really punish and penalize the small drug trafficker, or if you will, the user.
And it's generating results. Since the program began in late March, federal authorities have made over 1,500 arrests, seized 79 boats, and more than 2,200 vehicles. Their estimated worth in excess of $71 million, upping the ante to make the risk of buying and using drugs way too high to take.
On America's streets, drug dealers are not always what they seem. On this corner, they are undercover police officers, selling crack and arresting their customers. Cops call it buy and bust.
We have to start somewhere, you know. We have to feel like we're doing something.
Often these are one-on-one busts. One cop, one seller or buyer. The payoff is small, But local police say they must take this action to reclaim streets now controlled by drug dealers. In Dallas, hidden cameras record a series of drug sales, which in this case triggers a tactical team that sweeps into the neighborhood.
Anything you say, Ken, will be used as evidence in court.
40 are held for questioning, 18 arrested. Thousands of dollars in cash and cocaine confiscated.
Well, the first thing that we want to accomplish is to send them a message that they can't deal drugs openly on our streets.
The goal is to keep local drug dealers off balance so that buyers and sellers can never be sure whether they are walking into a trap.
7 years ago, when daytime playgrounds became nighttime drug markets, a frustrated and angry community formed a street watch program. The plan: protect themselves from the invasion of drug dealers and muggings and burglaries that followed. In this neighborhood now, the walls have eyes.
People observe from their windows, they observe on their way home from the subway or whatever. It's giving the people in the community a chance to do something about the drug dealing in the area.
Working with police, residents are trained to observe, identify, and report drug deals so arrests can be made.
Here we have two drug dealers in this scene. We have a male, black, gray cap, red jacket, dungarees.
With the help of a former police commander, residents and merchants learn to recognize what's happening right below their windows.
Well, we have our male Hispanic and our female Hispanic just standing on the street corner selling drugs. Here's a potential buyer. He's showing her his money. She's in negotiations right now.
The community's effort has paid off. Drug arrests are up, burglaries are down.
We have to live on these blocks, you know, and I'm sure, you know, we don't want our kids exposed to this. We don't want to be exposed to it.
The police can't do it all.
And so we find that cutting the drug supply is difficult, but it's not hopeless. And when there is a will, as we'll see, there is a way to make a difference.
My eyes are my life. I use them to think, to feel, to create. When they're red, burning, or irritated, I use Visine.
Visine with tetrahydrozoline in every drop goes to work in seconds to relieve the burning, to soothe the irritation, to get the red out.
That's what I call 100% relief. What more could I ask for?
To relieve the burning, to soothe the irritation, Visine gets the red out.
The answers to your long-distance questions.
And that takes courage. With your help, they won't have to stand alone. Every time you buy Doritos, we'll contribute to the Just Say No Foundation.
Do you crave cookies? On the next home, you'll get a prescription for healthy cookies that can actually keep the doctor away.
Also, you can win a $10,000 makeover.
Drugs make me feel good. Drugs make me cool.
You believe that crap? If you're on coke, everything you work for is disappearing. Right under your nose.
There's no home run on cocaine. You get me?
What if the joint were in somebody else's hand, like your surgeon, your lawyer, or your local policeman?
Welcome to the glamorous world of drugs. Crack will blow your mind.
Maybe we become too accustomed to seeing commercials on television, but those public service announcements should scare the hell out of us. And we can talk all we want about cutting off the nation's drug supply, but we all know that the bottom line is not supply, it's demand. Rich, poor, black, white, old, young, as long as there are Americans who want to do drugs, there's going to be supply. We don't have a hope in you-know-what of beating drugs if we don't do something to change the way people think about drugs. Hampton, Virginia could be an example for all of us. If it works there, the kids are going to be a lot better off.
People here in Hampton, Virginia are leaning on each other. This waterfront city, with its shopping malls and sleepy streets, is defending itself from the rising popularity of drugs.
Pot, acid, and cocaine is becoming real popular now.
This drug problem is a problem that no one group or one person can stop. It's going to take a concerted effort
Local government and area businesses coordinate an $800,000 multi-level program that targets school-age youngsters.
It has to happen through a combination of prevention, early intervention, treatment, law enforcement, and the attitudinal changes of the community.
The concerted effort begins here. A police team assigned to cover the schools and identify drug users.
And that's solely our main purpose, not to catch anybody or get somebody. We just want to keep the drugs off, and if the kids do have a problem, we want to get them help.
Crisis teams in each school reach out to kids in trouble.
They know where to go. There's someone in the school to talk to them, and they know it'll be confidential.
Talking helps young kids, too. Trained teenagers encourage them to resist drug pressures.
You're strong if you say no. They're the wimp because they're...
Kids support each other, and the community does its part. The owner of this local store volunteered her expertise to help set up a drug prevention rally. She believes you must begin with children to cut drug demand in the future.
And they're the ones that are going to change it.
And things are changing. Program officials point to a 30% drop each year in the number of youngsters kicked out of school for drug use. Learning to overcome hurdles in their lives is part of the program's message of success through self-confidence. People here are confident they can change attitudes about drug use.
And though we chose to concentrate on Hampton, Virginia, there are programs which try to change attitudes in other parts of the country. Let's hope there are more, because we're never going to beat drugs until we all have more pride in ourselves. We'd like you to meet a woman now who wants to change the way people think about drugs in her neighborhood. And she has exactly the right idea. The key is self-esteem.
Let me tell you what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting to keep us alive.
Amid the broken bottles and broken lives of Detroit's North Side, a woman named Dolores Bennett wages a single-handed war on drugs.
Even though you have a child or whoever that's on drugs, you show that child love, affection, and tell him he is somebody and he can make it.
Bennett's constant message is self-respect, a message to those already using drugs and to those who might. She sees firsthand the hopelessness so common in inner cities like this. That's why, she says, people here turn to drugs. And that's why people who respect themselves gain hope and won't need drugs. In her battle, she has taken on the role of surrogate parent to the community.
Some people will listen to her before they even listen to their own mother. And I'm one of them. Like when I was selling drugs, she said that was disrespecting myself, plus other people, plus you can, folks. I was like, okay, she's right.
Hello, little queen.
Knowing one is loved, Bennett feels, is the first step on the road to self-respect, and she gives all the love she's got. Part of the lesson of self-love is respect for one's environment, in this case, a park which Bennett reclaimed from a litter-strewn wasteland.
The young people, they'll keep up their park because that gives them dignity, that gives them pride in what they do.
Her work involves the young.
You new up here, sweetheart. I got to train you, too.
And it involves adults. She has frequent meetings to reinforce the idea of a drug-free community, and she teaches that discipline is a form of love. She had heard this boy might be using crack.
You ain't never tried them rocks?
No, I don't try no rocks.
What is rocks?
Some
yeah,
cocaine.
Well, okay, you sold it, okay.
Respect for her is so strong, no one ever refuses her punishments.
23, 24, you sure was trying. They need love. They need someone to care. Yeah, I love you.
Yes, ma'am.
I love you, Carrie.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to be a fighter to the end because while I breathe, I can help someone else.
If only it were as simple as one good woman. We've not concentrated much on treatment in this broadcast, but you know there are 6 million of our fellow citizens who need help getting off drugs, and there are facilities for only 250,000 of them to get help. In this country, people who ask for help are often turned away. There's been all this talk about a drug czar. It's a very attractive idea. And on various occasions, going back to World War II, and the czar in charge of wartime production, there have been such individuals who've been given the manpower and the money to get a job done. But the war against drugs will be a long one. And this administration, for one, has been tight with money. But given the money and the manpower and unstinting support from the next administration, we think an individual with real charisma, real power of personality, has a better than even chance of getting the nation turned on to the challenge. What we do not need is the specter of the two political parties vying with one another between now and November on who is going to hang the drug dealer higher. We've seen in this broadcast that when a neighborhood really decides to tackle the problem, it often prevails. When it comes to drugs, we all live in the same neighborhood. I'm Peter Jennings. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Drugs, Why This Plague? A Peter Jennings special has been brought to you by AT&T. In long-distance services, information and network systems, telephones and computers. AT&T, the right choice.
Wouldn't it be nice if businesses remain stagnant and if the edge that you somehow managed to gain when you started up would continue to be there for you?
My daughter can't raise the money.
She has to.
The conclusion of Lace 2, next.
We're actually being occupied by pushers and users.
We don't have enough resources. It's somebody else's problem.
We darn sure are losing the battle.
You can buy cocaine on the streets right in front of school.
I'm scared of getting hooked.
Police officer, search for me. You didn't have to yell like...
They're dealing dope out there. We're going to catch them.
We're not going to tolerate it.
My hands would start to shake, and I couldn't...
Under arrest, Will.
I ain't do nothing, man.
No child is immune.
I'm a drug addict.
They're really taking over our community.
Cracks, everything, cracks.
You do anything fun. The streets got him again. This cocaine ain't nothing but the devil.
I see somebody die here. Cocaine, marijuana, Quaaludes, you name it, I had.
Any fool can sell drugs.
It's getting worse. It's not getting better.
None of us is safe, and I don't care where you live.
I'm truly scared for my children.